Joining me today on our USFL Podcast Interview Series, I have the pleasure to be joined by former Birmingham Stallions receiver and punt returner, Ron Frederick. Ron, thank you for joining the show. I've been really excited to get to talk to you, mainly for a few reasons. One, it's USFL. I'm enthralled by this new version, but two, the fact that I haven't been able to talk to someone that's from the original iteration from the 80s, one that I... In terms of at least what I think could be a proof that this concept of spring football could work, is one that I kind of idolize in a way for just some of the glory of that game. I mean, thanks to have you on.
Sure, my pleasure. Anything to talk about. Really, two of the best years of my life, as I tell people, and I've had a wonderful life. But those 2 years in Birmingham were just really a highlight.
Well, let's talk how you got there. I know you had a great write-up that I got to get a bit of details back on you, but I want to let you talk to people on this for sure. I understand that you started out at East Carolina and then kind of got to meet a certain someone that also ended up with you in the USFL, just head coach a little bit.
Sure. In high school, I was recruited heavily by East Carolina. And at the time, the people in Alabama and Birmingham will like hearing this. The head coach was Pat Dye, who went on to win a national championship at Auburn, as everyone knows. But at that time, that was really his start as a head coach. He was very successful at East Carolina, ran the wishbone offense. When he was recruiting me, he said they were going to open up the offense and start throwing the ball. Being a wide receiver, that was important to me. And I was fortunate enough to be chosen for the East-West All-Star game the summer before my fall semester at East Carolina, my freshman year.
Nice.
And I was very fortunate in the East-West All-Star game. We had a very conservative coach, but he decided for that game we were going to open it up. He brought in quarterbacks and receivers that could throw the ball and catch it. And ended up being the most valuable player of the game, caught about 6 or 7 passes for 2 touchdowns, and our East team won. And in that game, some of the other ACC coaches were there, and so that's when I kind of caught their eye. But I had committed to East Carolina, wanted to give them a shot. Went to East Carolina, and had a great team. I think we were 8-3. And I alternated with the starting wide receiver there. That was a junior or a senior, and played a lot. I was the third leading receiver on the team, and I caught 5 passes. Oh. So if that tells you about our passing attack. But so I decided at the end of the season, I did want to transfer. If I was going to spend that much time that you've got to spend in football, I wanted to enjoy it. So I put out some feelers, and Wake Forest and Duke both said, sure, we'll offer you a full ride if you'll transfer. I visited both places, had a good feeling about Duke, and things just really fell into place for me there. I actually transferred to Duke when a coach named Mike McGee was the head coach there. But that was his last year, is the year I sat out. Now, they don't have to sit out now, but back then if you transferred, you had to sit out a year. So the year I sat out was McGee's last year. Duke hired Red Wilson. Red Wilson hired Steve Spurrier. That was Steve Spurrier's first offensive coordinator position. And our head coach, Red Wilson, basically just gave him the reins, said, you run it. And I really kind of fell into a receiver heaven. I mean, it was wonderful. We would throw it, 30 to 40, 50 times even. Some games, if we lost, it was, 42 to 38. We had some fun games, winning season my senior year, but just playing for Spurrier and that experience. I got to play for him 2 years, and my younger brother got to play for him actually a couple of years also. And that experience was just fantastic. I know there are a lot of people that don't like Spurrier, but usually the players that played for him love him. And he's the kind of guy that you want to win for, and he makes football fun.
Well, for my generation, any of the conversation around him and the Alliance of American Football is how I know.
Oh,
him.
yeah.
I mean, I've known of his, of course, his tenure with Florida and then South Carolina growing up.
Sure.
So, that's all I've heard is, he's a good players coach.
He really is. And, in the Alliance of American Football with Orlando, I think he wanted to jump in that and prove to himself again that he still had it. And they had one of the best offenses in the league. So he definitely still had it.
Yeah, they did. That was exciting. That was exciting stuff. I always look forward to an Apollo's game when they were
Oh
on
yeah,
because you knew either it was going to be a great camera moment or you'd
sure.
have something that you wouldn't see before in the league just because he was thinking outside the box
Exactly,
all the time.
exactly. I mean,
Absolutely.
his offense is creative, innovative. I mean, as a wide receiver, um, at Duke, I think I was 4 for 6 in my 2 years passing, but in those four passes, three of them were touchdowns. I mean,
Nice.
and that's his coaching. I mean, he would set up, to Spurrier, a trick play is not a trick play. It's a play that you practice each week and you run it just like you run a regular play. And we had several, and most of them were very effective.
Expect it to be in your repertoire. I like that
Yeah,
mindset.
sure.
I like that. Here's something I've been fascinated with this conversation here. I always have talked about the path for players. You know, you go through college. Back in the early '80s, I mean, we're talking now. You have indoor and arena, and that came funny enough in that decade when that spawned up with Jim
Right,
Foster. But your time was before that, so you don't have those arenas.
right.
Stuff like the World Football League had already closed down. I mean, you have NFL and what else? I mean,
That was
USFL was talking.
when I graduated, it was just really the NFL, and I was since I transferred, I actually graduated in December of 1981 after my senior season at Duke, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I felt like I wanted to give pro football a shot. I had a couple of scouts come and talk to me during the season, right at the end of the season, and showed some interest, and they decided they were going to come and have a kind of a workout day for 4 or 5 of the players that they were interested in. And after I went through that, Tampa Bay showed a lot of interest.
Okay.
They made me feel like I might be drafted. They said, stay by the phone, that kind of thing. And so when the draft came, I think it was 2 days of drafting at that time. I was sitting by the phone and I did not get a call, but the moment the draft ended, the phone rang, and it was Tampa Bay, and they said, we want to bring you in as a free agent, and we think you've got a shot here, et cetera. And so anyway, I'll shorten this long story to a shorter story, but I went through a couple of mini camps, had success there, went into training camp in preseason, and unfortunately for me, it was the year of the first NFL strike. It was 1982.
Yes.
And there was a lot of rumbling among the players, the coaches, the ownership. Ended up playing in 2 preseason games, caught a pass against Washington Commanders, I guess, is now the team.
Good catch, I guess. Good catch.
But so played against them, then played against Philadelphia. But I mean, before the game, both teams would line up and march across the field and shake hands at midfield in a show of solidarity. And, as a rookie, I just wanted to play. I wanted to make the team. And so you had all this worry. Well, am I doing something that's going to cause the coach to get mad? And, hey, we'll get rid of those guys. But thankfully, all of the players did it. So, I felt okay about it. But just a lot of that going on after the second game, where I guess we were about 2/3 of the way into preseason. I had injured my hand catching the ball. Actually, the point of the ball went right between my fingers and did a little bit of damage. And I was out several days, couldn't catch the ball. I was still running plays and things, but I couldn't get involved in any patterns, and that hurt me. And then I got the Turk came by and said, we're going to have to let you go. I think they were letting go a lot of the free agents and the later draft round rookies at that time, also due to they kind of saw the writing on the wall with the player strike that eventually did happen that year. So I left Tampa, came back to Duke. Coach Spurrier asked me to help him coach his wide receivers as kind of a volunteer wide receiver coach. And I was doing that, enjoying it, and got a call in, I guess, maybe October of that fall from none other than Raleigh Dodge. And I had heard that Birmingham had my rights since I'd played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in preseason. And so Birmingham had their rights, and several players that were with me in that preseason actually ended up coming to Birmingham. Bobby Lane was a quarterback, and some others. But Coach Dotch and I talked a couple of times on the phone, and I agreed. They sent me a contract and signed with them, and the rest is history. I'll tell you a little more if you're interested. We'll get there about actually training camp, but I think that USFL may have had things in line a little bit sooner than this newer league. Things seem a little more condensed with this newer league. Not that it's not going to be run or not. It's not going to be run poorly. I know that, but it's just that it seems like with the draft coming up and then quickly going into the practice and games. They've got a lot on their plate that they've got to get in order, but I feel pretty good about it. I'm excited about it.
Okay, well that's a good point here. Actually, so I do say that based on reading and just everything I've ever watched on it too. I know there's a great 30 for 30 documentary as well on the USFL that was made in 2009. Similar deal where it's like the lead up was very much well thought out.
It really was.
It seems like things fell apart when certain aspects were not agreed upon when they got to the start of that first game day.
Exactly. I just, the fan support, even though the first year in Birmingham, we got hit by some bad weather in several of our early games. I think one game we had 6,000, but it was sleeting that night. It was really bad weather. And, but we had some good support that year, and you could kind of tell the community was getting involved with the team. I know the city did a great job bringing players to different events, fundraisers. I know even the wives were involved in, especially in the second year, in fashion shows and things just to raise funds for the community. And I was in a great place. Birmingham did a great job with their support, certainly.
Well, they also had to, and I'm adding this on just for the team's history. They had to support the team for a little bit, from what I understand.
They did once the owner of the team pulled out due to some financial difficulties with the savings and loans that he owned. There was some minority ownership there, and they all came together. And our president at the time was Jerry Sklar. I talked with him not long ago, actually online, and he was instrumental in meeting with this minority ownership, and they came forward, put the funds together. And I mean, the players never noticed any issues at all as far as getting paid payroll, any of that type of thing. They never cut back on any of the nice amenities that we enjoyed. That wasn't the case with all of the teams. I think Rick Neuheisel in a book or an interview said that when they would get their paycheck, they would all jump in their cars and rush to the bank because there wasn't but so much money there to cover those paychecks. And so we didn't have that. I think that was San Antonio, but we didn't have that issue in Birmingham at all. It was really great.
That was. It's hilarious you bring that up because if you didn't tell me what the experience was, at least on that front, I was going to be like, is this like a gunslinger situation or are we talking like more stability, like a Tampa Bay Bandits or something like that,
Birmingham definitely was a stable city, and we felt it. From the get-go, from the beginning to the end, everything was professional. Yeah, the way Raleigh Dotch, he had coached with the Pittsburgh Steelers during the 70s as offensive line coach. He'd won, I think, 3 Super Bowls, and he knew how to do things in a professional way. And the ownership in Birmingham and the city itself really supported him. And I was very fortunate to have landed in that city, no doubt.
For your experience, you were there 2 of the 3 years that the USFL played. And I know that for its history and its time, 83 to 84 was kind of a significant jump in talent acquisition. I mean, could you tell that? I mean, your team itself, like Cliff Stout, Jim Smith, I mean, you guys got some good acquisitions too, just kind of bolster the roster,
make really a real push. We did. That's a good point. The first year we had some good players and I felt like we were playing quality football, but once the owners went ahead and opened up their pockets a little bit and started bringing in higher level talent and drafting, I mean, we were getting some first round drafts. I think Pittsburgh got Rozier, who was a Heisman Trophy winner. And of course, LA had Steve Young, and Jim Kelly came that second year. Like Birmingham, Jim Smith, phenomenal wide receiver. And he was one of the really one of the three receivers with the Steelers when they won those Super Bowls. I think they had Lynn Stallworth and a Swan, Lynn Swan, I'm sorry, John Stallworth. Yeah, let me get it right here. I'm trying to remember way back. But Jim was just a great wide receiver for Birmingham. We brought in Joe Cribbs that next year, Cliff Stout the next year, and of course Joey Jones came over from Alabama as a wide receiver, and we had some excellent offensive linemen too. I remember Buddy Adelette. I think he had played with the Green Bay Packers, and several others that on defense that were just great players. I mean, I really felt like anybody we played, we could win the game on any given Sunday, as they say.
So that's a point I've had conversations with. You're bringing up all the talent from the original one. When this new iteration was brought up, there was some, I'm not going to say all, but there was definitely some pushback from those that remember the game back in the 80s going, this is not going to be the same thing. Why are we bringing something back from the dead? I mean, did you have an initial thought on that? Were you just surprised they even grabbed that?
I do. And the reason I feel still positive about this new USFL is had some decisions been made differently back in that 83, 84 time, especially 84, going into the 85 year, I think the league still could have been successful and maybe gone on much further. Like I said, Birmingham in that 84 year, we had excellent fan support. I think Memphis had excellent fan support. And there were several teams. Tampa Bay at one time was doing better than the Buccaneers with fan support. And so, some decisions were made, some personalities got involved, and a big push to move it to the fall. That I think was the beginning of the end. Also, I'm not sure we could have brought in those big name players. Well, I know we wouldn't have gotten all of them without really opening up our wallets. Maybe if they had taken that a little more slowly, because the fan support, especially in some cities, was just not enough to be able to fund those contracts.
Right.
Some of these players, I think I read somewhere where Steve Young was given like a 40-year contract or something in LA. I mean, just crazy stuff. And so if this league will do it right, and if they're successful enough, and I know the first year it's not going to be fans, because I doubt that you're going to have a lot of fans there for games that are not Birmingham games. But if they can generate enough television support, and I hear there's a lot of betting that's going to be involved from Las Vegas and a lot of other money areas of funds supporting the league. If they can do that, and then when the leagues or when the teams move to their respective cities, maybe they've developed a little bit of a following, and then they can kind of go from there. If they're successful and they choose the right cities, some cities are not going to work out more than likely. Some will, and then there'll be more added. If they can do that, I think the potential is there for the league to survive. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the same. I know it's an unorthodox way that the new different iteration. It's definitely unorthodox. I mean,
this is unique with the bubble, and
right.
It's gonna, that's gonna be. I don't think anyone's really sure how it's going to go from there. But again, if they develop enough fan support in the different cities that have teams, once those teams get to those cities in the following year, hopefully, it may be successful.
Well, I'm going to jump back to the timeline. I know I kind of did.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
It was perfect. It was just timing with your statement. Looking at 1984, 1983. I mean, you have a favorite moment? I mean, the 84 team or 85 team were two of the best ones. Arguably, could have made it all the way. It's just the Philadelphia Stars had a roster that was pretty tough to tame. From what I have been able to tell.
Yeah, they knocked us out. In 84, I know they knocked us out, and I wasn't with them in 85, but I think they knocked them out in that year too. When I think back to the my 2 years there, I've got a lot of moments that really I would consider great moments. A lot of the games, I don't really think about specific points in the game, but just the games themselves. I remember, playing LA in the Coliseum. Our second game in '83 against Oakland out there, and Oakland was one of the better teams in the league. And we won that game. We had just lost to Michigan, the first game of our existence. In a tough game, I think we lost 9-7 and missed about a 25-yard field goal that would have won it. But coming back and then winning, flying out to Oakland and winning that game in Oakland meant a lot. That's one of my stories, and I've got a lot of them. I won't bore you with them all, but I've got one. We got on the plane, the charter jet, after the Oakland game, and we were about halfway into the flight, and it was rather loud, and players were excited about the win, and all of a sudden it got really quiet, and everybody looked to the front, and Raleigh Dotch was standing up at the front of the plane, and he was doing his hands like this. Everybody settle down. And he stood there and he just kind of stared at the team, and he, congratulated us on the win. And then he said, "I've got a little treat for you." And he started singing Danny Boy. Who knew that Raleigh Dotch had Irish blood? And he could sing beautifully. I mean, we felt we thought we were at an opera. I mean, it was incredible. And he's just singing these high notes with that Irish tenor. I mean, the plane was completely quiet. And when he finished the song, I mean, everybody exploded. I don't know how the plane stayed in the sky. But anyway, that was a great memory of a win, and then the aftermath of the win.
Irish folk. I didn't expect to be hearing that one today.
Yep, that was fun. That was fun.
You always got have the good ones with the victories, But I mean, understandable.
I don't have any good memories of those losses, believe me.
Well, okay. I mean, that I couldn't come in here and expect anyone to be like, "So tell me a good loss." What?
No. But I mean, as far as other good memories, I remember in '84, I believe, the last game of the season we played, or toward the end of the season, we played Tampa Bay. And we lost. The game wasn't that important because we had already we were going to play for the division championship, play them again actually at the first round of the playoffs. It was in Birmingham, but I think we had played them maybe at Tampa and lost. And we came back, and that Spurrier, was the coach, and so I wanted to do well against them, and show him some good things. But we played Tampa Bay at Birmingham. We had a big crowd, and we ended up winning fairly easily. It was a fun game to play in, and but that was a good memory, winning that game, knowing we were going on to play Philadelphia Stars for the conference championship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, against someone that is your in a way, a former ball coach there.
Sure.
And bandit ball. I mean, that's I think that's one of the aspects of this league. I think it sticks is, like you mentioned, that to people, and they're like, "Yeah, man, the the Spurrier way, just get it done, no matter what the cost."
Spurrier was so much fun. I mean, he just his offensive philosophy made it fun. I think of one game when I was at Duke. I believe this was 1980. Spurrier's first year at Duke. We went down to Clemson in Death Valley, and it was early in the season. We were down at halftime, and I thought, same old thing. Here we go.
Right.
Spurrier got us in at halftime, brought the receivers and quarterbacks into a separate room, and I thought he was going to put in some new routes or really change some things around. And he's so smart, and he's so good at looking at defenses and finding weaknesses with those defenses. And he said, for instance, like, give you an example, Frederick, on this end route, instead of 15 yards, I want you to take it to 20 yards. Cedric Jones was our other receiver who played several years for the New England Patriots. And he would just say, on this one, instead of 12 yards, just take it to 15. Just small little changes that he made to our pass patterns to stretch the defense. And we went out in the second half against Clemson at Death Valley, and we went up and down the field against them. We ended up beating them 34-17. To show you how good they were, the following year they won the national championship.
Right.
So they were a quality team, but Spurrier, you felt like you always had a chance when you were playing for him. And that's the kind of ball, that he played when he was at Tampa with the Bandits. Just a wide open fun and gun offense.
So you've already stated here that you didn't get to the 1985 season. You weren't on the team at that point.
Mhm.
Can you tell me just kind of how at least your last end of your 84 season went?
Sure.
And kind of, I don't know, maybe just thoughts about the league leaving or at the time, like you just going out, because I know it was kind of in a flux.
I will. The last game, like I said, we played the Philadelphia Stars in the playoffs, and we lost that game, knocked us out of the playoffs. And I had injured my ankle, and it was not your normal sprain. It looked like a volleyball. I mean, it wasn't quite that big, but it was really bad. I had done a lot of tendon damage and some ligament damage, and so the season was over. I came home. Originally thought, well, I'll go back the following year. I started going back and forth a little bit. I had played football since I was about 6 years old, of course, high school, college, and 2.5 to 3 years of professional football, and just started thinking about, maybe it was time for me to get out in the real world and do something else. And I had been married in '84, and also was, thinking about starting a family. I know that's a lot more difficult when you're playing pro football, and I had a couple of opportunities at the time outside of football, and just decided the timing was right. I could see into that fall this would have been late '84. There was a lot of turmoil within the league. I was reading some articles about some teams that were struggling, and then there was clashing among some of the ownership in the league, and started having some concerns for that third year. I think they got through most of that third year, but some of the teams really struggled. Of course, that's the year that basically it was the beginning of the end. But
Right.
Again, it was due to decision. I don't think it was due to the concept of spring football. That's why I'm positive about this new league. I think it was mainly due to just some poor decisions that were made. But I had decided, like I said, I got out, and there for a while, I'd go back and forth and think, is this what I really want to do? Do I want to give it another shot? But I was content. I felt like I had gotten enough football in my life and enjoyed it, and certainly had fun with it, and was ready to do something else. And that's basically what I based my decision on.
Right. I mean, completely understand. Life does have stages.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going through that myself too. So
Yeah.
I mean, trust me, I get that. Although for me, my football ended back in high school, so it's been a while.
Yeah, well, different stages for different people, but it's it's something I wouldn't trade it for anything. As I've said earlier, those 2 years in Birmingham were just fantastic. The city got behind the team and was so supportive. They would involve players and fundraisers, fashion type things for the spouses, as I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They would have events and always invite a few Birmingham players. I think I was the celebrity spokesman for a medical nonprofit there,
Nice.
which was nice. I felt like I was actually contributing to humanity, and
Mm-hmm.
but that Birmingham made that experience what it was. I know a lot there, not a lot, but there are some other USFL players that didn't have that. But in Birmingham, they were just so positive. That's why I was actually excited to hear that if they were going to have this new league in a bubble, that they were going to have it in Birmingham,
Right.
because that city gets behind their football, their teams. They certainly do.
It's I call it, and others are starting to call it, like a mecca of alt football. Almost every league has gone through Birmingham, Alabama. One
That's
way
true.
or another. And it's funny that the Stallions get kind of a rebirth in a way, and that they're choosing this. I when they announced it was Birmingham, I was like, what a perfect spot. Just
I know
history.
it. I know it. I just and it's not just that the people there love football, but at least if they do like they did when I played, and I know it was many years ago, they did it in a very professional way, and they didn't cut corners. And I think the fans that went to the games, and I'm in 2 or 3 USFL groups, and you can I love hearing from these people that, are bringing back these memories of when they went to these games,
Yeah.
and what they did and what it meant to them. And, but that's what we felt. We could feel that support, especially in the Birmingham area. So that was fun.
One final question, just because I'm curious. Do you have any memorabilia still from your time playing? Did you get to keep any things out the door?
I do. I've got some Tampa Bay stuff. I've got some Birmingham stuff. Matter of fact, one of the groups I'm in, they had a 1984 team poster, and I've not seen anybody on any of these sites have the 1983 Birmingham team poster. And of course, I have one of those.
Okay.
My wife, I told her I was getting ready to do the podcast with you, and she said, "Well, do you want your Birmingham mug?" The original 83 team got Birmingham Stallions inaugural season mugs with the and some of them are on eBay now, by the way, but they have the schedule of all the the teams we played
Nice.
on the mug, and it says inaugural season 83 USFL Birmingham Stallions with the Stallion logo. So but no, I've got some t-shirts and some wristbands and some other things like that. Sure.
I'm just saying, I mean, everyone's bringing it out. It's funny because I'm in a few of those groups with you. So I'm enjoying it, just because I get to see a different era, get really excited for something, that I just like reading about. So it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun seeing all that stuff.
Sure.
Ron, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining the show. Really means a lot. Glad to talk with someone that played in that time and just getting to talk about a different era. Like I said, I talk usually, more my generation. I get to talk to someone that was from a different generation of football. So appreciate your time and thank you very much for joining me today.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you.